Okay, today we have our sixth session. Just 1 minute, please. Our sixth session of the philosophy seminar. We're going to discuss today the nature of the tendencies which are stored in the causal body and how they manifest in our daily life. Now, we have mentioned that we have what is called the causal body, which is the highest and most subtle body of the soul, in which all of the memories, all of the experiences, the tendencies of the soul are stored from all of the incarnations. And then in each incarnation, depending on what the soul wants to learn, what specific lessons or work the soul wants to do in the particular incarnation, it brings forth from the causal body into the personality specific traits. Some traits will be helpful, such as ability to understand music or mathematics, ability to work with people, various spiritual virtues such as love, kindness, forgiveness, and also it may bring with it fear, selfishness, a tendency towards anger, a tendency towards playing the victim, some intense desires, whatever the soul needs to work on. And these traits form what we call the character. And this is why each soul is born with a character. Even though the childhood years play an important role in our character, we are born also with certain traits. The soul is born with certain traits already there. Now these traits can be grouped into 4 groupings. One group of traits is those that are dormant. That is, they are not active in this lifetime, or they are not active at this time in our life. They may have been overcome. For example, there may have been a time in which we had very strong desires for some things, and then naturally, through the growth process, they became less important to us. So they have become dormant. For example, we have gone through an evolution of what we need to be happy. When we were children, we wanted toys to play with. And if someone ever told us that this toy will not be important to you someday, we would think that they are crazy. I mean, this toy is everything to me. This doll or this little car or this little machine that I have. Gradually, it wasn't important. Then a bicycle became very important. And then gradually it wasn't so important. And then a motorcycle, and then a car, and then a spouse, and then a job, and then money. And then gradually, one after the other, these desires, even though we fulfilled them, we found that it's not interesting to us anymore, and we moved on to something else. Also, for example, the latent spirituality which exists in many people, but is not able to express itself because the environment doesn't allow it. I mean, everyone is spiritual, everyone is spirit, so everyone is spiritual. But in this society in which people are programmed completely differently, that quality of spirituality, that quality of love, that quality of unity will be dormant in most people in society, because the society, the environment, doesn't support it. Or, for example, the femininity in a male. That femininity is there, but the environment doesn't support a male in being affectionate, in being sensitive. So the qualities are in the soul, because every male has also had female incarnations, just as every female has had male incarnations, and this is how we can explain the anima and the animus of Jung, that the anima is the sum of all my female experiences, and the animus is the sum of all of the male experiences, and both exist in the subconscious. But in a particular incarnation, depending on the particular gender that I have chosen in the society in which I live, these may or may not be able to be expressed. So what we have, first of all, are the dormant qualities, those qualities which are within our soul, but which we are not experiencing in our personality at this time. The second category is the weak tendencies, the tendencies which you wouldn't characterize this person as an angry person, but once every 3 or 4 years he can get angry. Okay? You wouldn't characterize this person as a sensitive person, but there are times in which he's sensitive. So there are qualities which we experience infrequently. They are weak, but there are times when in this particular environment or the particular stimulus, these qualities come to the surface. So we have the attenuated or the weak tendencies. Now, what affects whether these tendencies will come to the surface or not? One aspect is the environment. Another aspect are the specific stimuli which we receive from people, and from life. And another aspect is our energy level. So depending on our energy level, usually when our energy is high, our more positive traits are energized and stimulated. Whereas when our energy is low, usually our negative traits come to the surface. There are fears, we're trying to protect our energy, our anger, our jealousy, our worrying. So worrying is a trait, fear is a trait, anger is a trait, jealousy is a trait, just as artistic ability is a trait, just as love is a trait and peace is a trait. These are all aspects of the personality. So the second category are those qualities which come up infrequently. They are in us, but they need to be stimulated in some way. A third category is the alternating opposite tendencies. That we have people, for example, a person may have a tendency towards celibacy, to become a monk, and on the other hand, have very strong sexual desires. So he may be alternating and experiencing not wanting to engage in sexual activity and then wanting very much. Or another person who is experiencing love for somebody, but also hate for somebody. These are alternating, may love somebody, but also be in an antagonistic relationship with somebody. So being antagonistic is also a trait, or being competitive. So they're alternating. At one minute this person is so loving, and next moment they're in an antagonistic situation. Or someone who has great fear or courage. And of course, the epitome of the alternating tendency is the manic depressive, in which it can go for months or years, an extreme high, believing that he's Superman, and then go into a deep depression in which he feels that he has no power whatsoever. So these will be alternating tendencies. It is at one point feeling super high, and the other point feeling super low. So we all have also alternating opposite tendencies. Some people alternate into greater extremes and more frequently. Other people are more steady and have less alternation in their tendencies and their traits. And the fourth quality are the fully expanded, the fully operative traits or qualities, those which characterize our character, our personality. It's a person, if someone would describe us, they would describe us as a person who is loving, or who is angry, or is competitive, or is focused on money, or focused on politics, or focused on religion, or focused on sports, or focused on his body, or focused on his emotions, or on his mind. These are those traits which are fully expanded in our personality and which in many ways define our personality. You have a paper there, a questionnaire, for next week to analyze your tendencies. Okay? So I'd like you to observe your various traits and emotional states, interests, thoughts, and try to categorize them. Try to, of course, you won't be observing only what happened this week, but observe yourself in terms of your past also. So let's see what this questionnaire says. Observe your various tendencies and character traits this week. In addition, review your various traits and behaviors throughout the years until this moment. Separate, if you can, these tendencies into the following three categories. Look at both what you consider to be your positive and your negative traits. The first category are weak tendencies which appear infrequently or only under certain conditions. Secondly, alternating opposite tendencies. And thirdly, tendencies which are more obvious and define your character in this life. And then you have space for some comments down below. So observe this. It's interesting to observe. We are none of these. We are none of these traits. We are the observer of these traits. These traits are various qualities which are stored in our causal body, which are brought into our subconscious and then manifested through our conscious mind in this world. But we are the observer of this. These do not define us. They do not define our true being or our self-worth. So we want to begin to look at them as feeling separate from them and observe these qualities so to see ourselves more clearly, more objectively. That I have a tendency towards jealousy. I have a tendency towards fear, a tendency towards anger. I have these talents. I have these weaknesses. I have these abilities, and I'm unable in these places. Just to see, to get a more objective view of ourselves. Now I'd like to speak to you about the three laws which govern our evolutionary process. And then we'll speak more in detail about the first of those laws. The first law is the law of karma. The law of karma says that everything that we think, do, or say, every choice that we make has a reaction. That for every action, there is a reaction. And you must remember that that thoughts are also actions, and that feelings are also actions. Okay? And the law is that everything that I do comes back to me. This is not a law exclusive to Eastern religions, as many people think. There are so many parts of the Bible, and especially of the New Testament, which speak about this. Christ said to the paralyzed man, "Get up and walk and even carry your bed with you. Your sins are forgiven." He did not say, "Get up and walk, I heal you." He directly connected this person's paralysis with previous sins. That there was a reason why he was paralyzed. It was an effect of a result. It was a result of an effect. Also it said, you will sow as you reap. You will reap as you sow. So whatever seeds you sow, you will reap accordingly. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword. And when he cured the blind man, the apostles asked, was he born blind from his own sins or from his parents' sins? Of course, the answer was neither. He was born to show the glory of God, because through this healing, people would believe. But the very question shows that they believe that it's impossible for someone to be blind or to be paralyzed, or to go through anything if they have not created it, but there was also the possibility that the parents may have created it. This is something I don't accept, but it was a belief at that time, that a child could experience things because of the mistakes of the parents, which doesn't seem to me very just. Okay, so the first law is the law of karma. And so in life I grow by receiving the result of my actions, and the feelings that I experience by receiving the results, by whatever I do coming back to me, causes me to go deeper, causes me to think, causes me to correct my behavior and my way of thinking so that I proceed. So I think it's a great mistake to see karma as a law of punishment. Punishment actually has no place in the universe, because the universe exists for evolution. Simply to experience punishment doesn't make me evolve. To receive a negative experience and to wonder about that and to see what I can learn from this experience, that makes sense. So I don't see karma as a punishment. I see it simply as a law which facilitates evolution. That only by experiencing the results of what I do to others and how I think about others can I really see how that works and get free from it. So I don't see it as a punishment. I see it as an opportunity that karma, the law of karma, brings to us the specific events which we need to go through in order to learn certain lessons. The second law is the law of dharma. Now, dharma we have discussed at some point in the meditation seminar when we were discussing right action. When I'm functioning under the law of karma, I want to do what is right so that I don't create the karma of suffering. Actually, the motive is a bit selfish. I mean, not to do bad things so I'm not punished either by God or that I don't receive a karma is a bit selfish. It's better to not do bad things. That's good. But the fact is that I'm doing it so that only because I will be punished otherwise. In the law of dharma, I don't do the right thing because I'm afraid of being punished. I do it because I have a sense of duty. I have a sense of righteousness. I realize the importance of functioning in a way which is not detrimental to the whole. I'm not doing it so as to avoid punishment. I'm doing it because I recognize the importance of functioning righteously. So it's not that I stop at the stoplight or don't throw garbage out of my balcony because I'm afraid of being arrested for it. I don't do it because I realize that if everyone doesn't stop at the stoplight, and if everyone throws their garbage off the balcony, what would happen? Okay, so I'm identifying more with the whole. So I'm functioning out of a sense of correctness. I want to be correct. Now this correctness sometimes can be without love. Sometimes people get locked into the idea of dharma, and they become so obsessed about what is right that they lose also understanding and love. And also they could tend to suppress themselves. And that is, I must do the right thing, and in suppressing themselves, they become angry with those who do not suppress themselves. So you can tell that anyone who is being correct and is getting angry with those who are not being correct is making some effort to be correct. Otherwise he wouldn't be getting so angry. He's feeling cheated. He's feeling injustice. That here I am suppressing myself, always being on time, always doing what I say, always being okay, and you're not doing this, and this is an injustice to me because I am really making an effort here. I'm suppressing needs, I'm pushing myself beyond limits. Whereas there is an effort. It's much better than functioning out of the law of karma and simply just not doing whatever would have some consequences. I mean, it's a higher level of functioning. But it could lack love, because I can do it out of a sense of duty, but maybe I'm not loving it. I'm doing it out of a sense of righteousness. And the third law is the law of love, in which I am correct, I harm no one, not because I'm afraid of being punished, and not because it's the right thing to do and I want to be right, but because I am totally identified with the other person. that it's impossible, it becomes impossible for me to do something to the other or to society which I would not like the others to do to me. I feel unity, I feel love. And that love precludes the possibility. It's just not possible for me to harm. Whereas in the law of karma, I don't want to be harmed so that I'm not harmed back. In the law of dharma, I don't want to harm because this is the way I should be. In the law of love, it's impossible to think about. It's my nature not to harm. So there's no effort involved. Now, most of us, however, are not yet so connected with the dharma or the love. And so we're functioning in the law of karma. And we are experiencing today the results of all of our previous actions, thoughts, and words. And our reality is a mixture of positive and negative. Or, I don't like the words positive and negative because they're really not positive. I would say pleasant and unpleasant, because people talk about bad karma. In reality, there's no such thing as bad karma. All karma is good. There is unpleasant karma. What people call bad karma is what is unpleasant. And what is unpleasant is often the best that we can have for our growth process. Not that we should seek the unpleasant. No, we should seek the pleasant, that's fine. But when the unpleasant comes, we should not call it bad karma. It's good karma. It's exactly what I need to provoke my growth process. So we should get rid of the ideas of good and bad karma or positive and negative. So we all have a mixture now. Everyone here has a mixture. We have very happy, pleasant things in our lives. We are lucky in some areas of our lives. Where we say we are lucky, it's not lucky, there's no luck, is the direct result of all of our choices of the past and the things we have developed, the qualities we have developed. And then where we say we are unlucky is simply the result of other choices we made in the past. So we have a combination. Every person I meet has a combination of karma in his life. Now, since the present is the result of the past, that means that the future is the result of the past plus the present, because the present is the past of the future. Which means that I have the possibility of changing the future. My possibility of changing the future is my choice in the present. But only if I can make conscious choices. Because if my choices are programmed choices, programmed by all of my programmings from my childhood years, and I'm not able to get out of that programming and that robot-like functioning, really I have no free will. We'll speak about free will next week, but free will means to have will and to have the freedom of choice. If I am so programmed emotionally to react with this in this way, with that stimulus, then I can't talk about free will. I have no free will. I am a robot. And if someone says these 5 words to me, I have no other possibility of reacting. I'm so limited by my programming, I will react in a very determined way. And in this way, my future is determined, because my reactions are determined. So free will is something which we develop by being conscious of our programming and being able to choose it or not choosing it, depending on the specific situation. So, the law of karma is a force which is pushing us in an evolutionary direction. Imagine that you're on a stream, and the stream is moving from the illusion of separateness and fear and ego-centeredness to the truth of oneness, to love, and to selflessness. And as we're moving along this river, we decide we don't like where it's going. We're afraid. Becoming selfless is a very fearful experience. Trusting is a very fearful experience. Can I trust? Getting very close to other people is an experience which brings much fear. So it's very natural that I would resist the flow of this river, or that I would try to catch on to some rocks or some sticks so that I am not taken from where I am, because everyone feels safe with what is known to them, and no one likes change. So rather than experience change, we try to control reality, to control people, and to control all the situations around us, because we don't have enough faith in this flow. We don't have a faith that there is a guiding force behind the events of our lives, which are leading us and our loved ones towards a very specific result, which is our evolutionary process. Because we don't have faith in that, we try to control situations and we resist change. Whenever we resist change, then this river pushes, because the river, our destiny is to move down this river, so there's exerting a pressure on us. This pressure are the events that come to us, the karmic events which come to us, which become stimuli to let go of something, to let go of some idea, to let go of some fear, to some attachment that we have. The time has come for us to let go of this attachment, to let go of this idea, to let go of something to which we are definitely addicted. So whenever our evolutionary process stops, or we try to go in the opposite direction, this force of karma tries to push us on. You know, it's like the little child. You tell the child, go wash up, doesn't go. You say again, go wash up. After about 10 times, you just take the child and you put him in the shower, and he starts crying. So, you know, life gives us messages. Your body is giving you a message. I'll take a pill. I don't look to see what the cause of the problem is. I'll take a painkiller. The body is paining because I'm thinking in some way, I'm eating in some way, I'm behaving in some way, so as to create an imbalance in my body. But who wants to do exercises? Who wants to eat properly? Who wants to do relaxation every day? I'll take a pain pill. I ignore the message from the body. The cause remains. I keep thinking in the same way. I have the same emotions. I'm eating in the same way. I'm behaving in the same way. This one comes out somewhere else. So I take another pill. And then the pills create problems, so I take pills for the pills. And all this time, I'm ignoring the cause. The cause is in the way I think, the way I eat, and the way I'm living my life. So the law of karma brings to us these experiences, which the purpose of which is to help us move on, make positive changes in our lives, and we'll discuss this next week, what those changes might be. But we have the free will to listen or not. This is man's greatest gift and man's greatest curse, is free will. Because before that, in the animal state, there was no possibility of free will. There was no possibility of getting out of our nature. I mean, no animal would think of behaving like another animal. No plant would try to change its appearance. Because I don't like looking like a corn. I think I want to look like a rose, you know. I mean, nothing in nature tries to change its nature. It's bound to its nature. Only man has choice. Every one of us has been born with a specific life purpose which involves our own evolutionary growth and what we have come to offer, to create here on the planet. But most of us don't spend any time on that. I mean, if you ask yourself, how many hours a day do I give to my self-betterment, to my contact with my soul, and how many hours a day do I give towards bettering society, I think that we'll find it's a small portion of our lives. The greater portion of our lives is our appearance, our financial situation, taking care of ourselves and the small group of people with which we feel connected. Okay, so let's see how this has developed. Let's say, for example, in the beginning of creation, there were first only cells, one-celled organisms. And these cells fell in various environments, heat and cold, moist and dry, and began to develop various qualities in response to their environment. Every time they developed these qualities became ingrained. And then as the environment changed, there became an evolutionary process from one-celled organisms to plants, fish, birds, animals, primates, and arriving the latest model, the human being. Okay? And so this is an evolution not so much as of consciousness, but an evolution of the vehicle of consciousness. Every year the cars become more effective, but it's the same driver in the car. So the consciousness is the same. It's just that the vehicle that the consciousness is using, this one consciousness is using to express itself in the physical realm, is evolving. The vehicle is evolving, not the consciousness itself. Just as we are not evolving because we have a new and better car. But the car is better, and the car is more able to function in the environment, has more possibilities of expression. So we arrive to the state of incarnating as a human being, already having developed certain qualities in our incarnations as plant and animal. And then we start with the process of free will, of being able to choose how we are going to behave. And then starts this process of evolution, in which until now it has taken place totally unconsciously. And even I would say for many people it is still unconscious. And then we realize that I can participate in this process. That I can make choices in my life. I can choose to react with anger, with hate, with fear, with jealousy, with love, with courage. And we begin to realize that we have choices. And every time we make a choice, this choice creates a new subconscious. This choice is ingrained in as a new tendency in our causal body. And when we make that choice over and over, when I choose love over and over again, when I choose forgiveness over and over again, I gradually become characterized by this samskara, this tendency begins to become stronger and stronger within me. As it becomes stronger, other tendencies begin to weaken. It's like having a garden and choosing which plants you're going to water and which you're not. The concept is that it's best not to fight with negative tendencies, because the more you fight with something in yourself, the more you strengthen it. That it's better to accept these aspects of ourselves, to love them and to educate them. That is, as Sai Baba says, you can't chase away the darkness, but you can just turn on the light. And when you turn on the light, the darkness disappears. So rather than fighting with our negative tendencies, with our negative qualities, and rejecting them and hating that part of ourselves, this is not considered a useful way of growing, because nothing can be achieved by hate or rejection. Love these parts of ourselves, understand them, that I become jealous because I fear my self-worth. I become hateful because I fear for my safety and my self-worth or my freedom, and realize that behind all my negative qualities is fear. And that when you reject someone who fears, or a part of yourself which fears, you just increase the cause. You don't solve anything. So it is to accept and love these parts of ourselves, and then educate them. You see, you need not fear, you need not feel jealous, you need not hate for these reasons. You're fine, you're a great person, you're a nice person. You deserve love, you're safe, you don't need what that person has. Life is giving you exactly what you need. You are creating your own reality. And by bringing these truths into the mind, these parts of it, that's bringing the light in, because these truths are like light, the darkness disappears. So rather than fighting with parts of ourselves, let's enlighten them with the various truths. It's a much more effective process. Now, as long as these samskaras, these tendencies exist, they will create the situations of our birth and, of course, the early years of our lives. Let's look at Patanjali's statement on this. He says, as long as there are kleshas, or ignorance, in samskaras, stored in the causal body, they will limit the lives of the individual in the following way. The class of birth. Now, in India, you know, there are the 4 classes, the castes. So he spoke in terms of classes. What does that mean in our society? The social economic class into which the soul will be born, the country that the soul will choose. It's not by chance that each of you chose the country of your birth, the specific parents and the position of those parents in society, the parents' state of body and mind, whether they be ill or healthy, the character of the parents, the neighborhood, and the siblings, and even the early childhood friends and experiences. So the first thing that is dictated by the samskaras, or the tendencies, is all of these factors concerning our birth. The second is the length of the life. According to Patanjali, that the length of life, I would say that I don't think that this is absolute, but it's relative. I think that this can be extended or reduced to a certain degree. But I believe that when someone dies in an accident, his life was not cut short. He programmed to live that long. This is my belief. I think I told you about my father being shot and how he had a dream some days earlier. Did I tell you about that? No? My father was assassinated, and my mother remembered after the assassination that he was shouting in his sleep 3 days earlier, "Ray, Ray, watch out, he has a gun." And he was speaking to Ray Gusson, who was another professor at the same university. My father was the dean of students at the American University of Beirut. And this student killed Ray Gusson and killed my father within 5 minutes. He went to the one office, killed the one, and then killed the other. And so my father, as a soul, was totally aware that he would be dying in 3 days. But consciously, he went to his office, perfectly happy, nice day, greeting everybody. He had no awareness of this consciously. But his subconscious, which is more connected with the soul, was totally aware that in 3 days he would be leaving his physical body. And I don't believe that this student who shot him was the cause of his death. He was just the instrument of his death, the means of his death. I believe the cause was my father's karma, my father's choice to live in that way and at that time. So the length of life. I don't say that this could not be changed. I think there are things that we could do to change this. Not that it's really important. I mean, everyone wants to know how they can live longer. I really can't understand why. I mean, it's perfectly clear that life outside of the physical body is much more pleasant than life inside the physical body. But this is what we know. We know this physical body. And since we haven't experienced the state of being outside of the physical body, although some people have experienced it, and just about all who have experienced it have not wanted to return. I mean, you can read the books by Raymond Moody, a number of books now of near-death experiences, and I will show you a video on this by the BBC when we talk about immortality. No one wants to return. It's much nicer out of the body than it is in. But because this is what we know, and we're programmed by society, our main question is, how can I live longer? I would say, how can I grow more? How can I serve more? How can I make a greater use of my life? This, I think, is a much more important question then how can I live longer? I could live 300 years and do nothing with my life. Christ did everything he had to do in 33 years. And his power exists 2,000 years later. Vivekananda lived only 33 years. And his books and his teachings are very strong today. So it's not how many years I live, it's what I do with those years, which is much more important. So the first factor which is controlled by karma is the class of birth, the factors of birth. And the second is the length of life. And the third are the major pleasant and unpleasant experiences of life. Now we mentioned that the present is the result of the past, and so the future is the result of the present and the past, so we can change these things to some degree. But there is a certain momentum. We bring with us a certain momentum towards certain events, which would be difficult to change. And we have chosen, for example, to lose a loved one at some time. We have chosen, for example, to go through an economic crisis at some time, or to go through an illness ourselves. It doesn't mean that all of our illnesses or economic situations are the result of choices we made before we were born. We can also create a lot of problems for ourselves now by the way we function in life. You don't have to see everything as a karma. It could very much be the result of the way I have lived the last 5 years. I mean, it takes time to create an illness. I don't create it by eating wrongly once or by not exercising one day. I mean, fortunately the body has some strength, but if I keep ignoring the needs of the body and suddenly after 20 years of neglecting the body I become ill, that may not be a karma from a previous life, something that I've chosen. It may very well be something that I created now with the way that I'm living and thinking. And a divorce may not be something I chose from a previous life. It could be the function of the fact that I am refusing to see certain parts of myself which are leading to that divorce. So we can't leave everything to previous lives and to karma. We can leave it to karma because karma does not mean what happens in previous lives. It means what happens in the past. And 3 minutes ago is the past. So everything I do, even to 1 second ago, is the past which is creating the present moment. So there are also, however, two other factors which are, so the karma is a basic factor in the creation of our reality. But there are two factors, other factors, which also contribute to creating our reality. One is our present belief system, our present inner state, our beliefs, our expectations, our preconceptions, our fears, our inner conflicts, our guilt. All of these are our attachments. All of these aspects of our being are reflecting in the present and coming back to us as reality. So something that's happening to me today may not be a karma from a past life. It may be the result of the fact that I am not respecting myself enough, or that I am not forgiving enough, or that I have a tendency towards a competitive relationship, or that I'm not caring for my body or for my mind. So the second aspect of the creation of reality is what I am doing now, how I am thinking, and how I am behaving now. So we shouldn't put everything to karma. Because you see, the problem is that if I just say it's a karma and accept it, I may not learn the lesson necessary, because I may need to change something in the way I think or the way I feel or act so as for this to get the benefit from what is happening. And the third factor in the creation of our reality are the tests, are the lessons that we have chosen to learn in this life. So if I have chosen to learn unconditional love, then it will be obviously necessary to choose to have close to me people who have exactly those conditions which I put, the people who is difficult for me to love. If I have chosen to learn self-acceptance, then it's very natural that I would have chosen people to reject me. People from whom I can't get recognition or acceptance. Only then can I develop self-confidence and self-acceptance. If I have chosen to develop inner strength, then it would be obvious that I would have chosen in this life not to be able to find someone to depend on. Because only by not having someone to depend on can I learn to depend on myself. Otherwise, I'll choose the easy road, depend on the other. So these three factors, that is, our karma, what we are emitting now, our emotions, feelings, thoughts now, and the lessons we have chose are what create our daily reality. When we understand this, we get free from most negative emotions. First of all, there's no need for bitterness or anger or injustice, because I am the sole creator of everything that has ever happened to me. Everyone who has played a role in that was able to play that role only because I created the possibility. By my previous actions, by my present way of thinking, and by the lessons I chose to learn. So everyone else is just an actor in my life. And I have given them their script to play. If I don't like the script that they're playing, then I can change it by changing how I think. You have to turn it around. It's on the right-hand side there. You press the red button.
Red button?
Yeah. Okay, we continue. So, believing that I am the sole creator of my reality through my past, my present, and my chosen lessons frees me from all bitterness, all anger, all hurt, all injustice. It also frees me from jealousy, because I realize that at every moment I have exactly what I need to have for my spiritual process. And if it was more useful for me to have something else, then I would have it. That shouldn't lead me to an apathy of not trying to create what I want. I have every right, if I don't like what I have, to be more dynamic in creating it. Well, don't be jealous of someone else that has it. If you want to create it, create it. Make every effort to create it. It frees us from fear of the future, because the future can only bring what I create. And it can only bring that which will be the most beneficial stimulus for my growth process. It may be pleasant, it may be unpleasant. I may suffer. But even if I suffer, I will overcome the suffering and I will continue. I mean, how many times have we all suffered in our lives? How many times have we all felt fear in our lives? And here we are. I mean, I have no doubt that I will suffer again. I have no doubt that I will fear again. But that's just a game of my mind. I mean, the reality is that all of the times I have feared, all the times I have suffered, nothing has happened to me. I'm fine. Sometimes we think we're made up of glass, a very fragile, so we should write fragile on it. I remember that I had an incredible fear of violence. And I went through about 2 years of my life in which I was the continuous recipient of violence. It started out one day when I was at the university of being jumped by a gang who beat us up. There were 3 people beating on me at the time. And then a little while later I was walking in Central Park in New York, and two young men came up from behind with knives. Said, "Give us all your money." I only had $11. They were pretty unlucky robbers. And I gave them the money, and I said, I'm not from New York. I have to make a phone call. Give me some money to make a phone call. They gave me $1 back. Very, very generous. I left that place and went and sat on the steps of my friend's building, waiting for him to come back so that I could go upstairs. He was locked. And as we were sitting there, these four men come out of the building, and suddenly behind me I hear car doors opening, and these cops come out, and these cops and these men start shooting at each other over my head. Okay? There's bullets going like this over my head. So I run from there. A few months later, I'm in Boston. I'm in my apartment. The doorbell rings. I open the door, and I was in the third day of a silent meditation process. Hadn't eaten for 3 days, and I was doing meditation. I was extremely open and sensitive. And this guy puts a rifle to my head. Another guy comes after him with a pistol. They tie me up. They start to get very angry about why they're not getting anything out of this, because I had no money, nothing for them. They were very unlucky also. They left me tied up with a pillow over my head. A week later, I was walking back to the apartment, and now I started to fear. All of these events, I was starting to fear. I hear somebody walking behind me. So this guy, I look back at this guy walking quickly. I said, well, danger here. I start walking more quickly. Finally, he catches up to me, and I turn around like this, and he keeps on walking, and I go, oh, okay. And then he turns around with a gun and says, "Give me your money." This time I had only a bag. I had a bag of alfalfa sprouts and 25 cents. This is what he got. So I says, what is happening here? In each case, afterwards, I sat down, I sent light to these people, I forgave them, and tried to figure out what my lesson was. Why am I attracting violence? So I finally got the message, maybe I should move from this neighborhood. This was time. So I moved, and where did I go? I went to Beirut. This was in '74. After about 7 months, the war starts. There are bombs and bullets. And then one day I realized that the whole thing, that there were two lessons in all of this. One lesson was that I had a great fear of violence. And I had been through so many violent experiences, knives and guns and bombs and guns again. Here I was, fine. So as to stop fearing so much violence. And secondly, that there was aggression in myself which I was not expressing. There was an aggressivity which I was suppressing. And that this suppressed aggressivity was attracting through the mirroring effect, through the reflecting effect. Yeah? And so it took me about 2 years, but I eventually understood the meaning of all of these events. Nothing has happened in the last 20 years or so. But, so when things are happening over and over again in our lives, it's necessary to see, why is this happening? What am I supposed to learn from the situation? And also, in each case, to send light and to reestablish a feeling of love towards those people who have played a role in that, in the situation. Okay, so today's lesson was about the tendencies, the 4 qualities of tendencies: the dormant, the weak tendencies, the alternating tendencies, and the fully operative tendencies. And you're going to look this week to see what tendencies you have in these 4 cases, and we'll discuss them next week. And secondly, the 3 laws, the law of karma, the law of dharma, and the law of love, how they work in our lives, and more specifically how karma works, and how our reality is created by the result of the karma of the past, the reflection of what is in us in the present, and the lessons that we have chose to learn in this lifetime. So think about this week. Next week we will talk about the balance between free will and fate, and how we can understand these two apparently opposite concepts. Are things fated in our lives, or are they a result of our free will? We'll discuss this next week. So let us move on to the meditation, and then we can have your questions and discussion afterwards. Okay, find a comfortable sitting position, the spine straight. Begin to focus on your breathing. Breathing more slowly and more deeply. You can begin with the alternate breathing, alternating nostrils. As you inhale into the solar plexus, hold in the heart center. Exhale, feeling the energy flow up through the neck into the head. And then the suspension of the breath, focusing on the forehead. Continue alternating the nostrils as you focus on the breathing in this way. Focused on the breathing as you alternate the nostrils. Now you can allow your breathing to continue by itself naturally and become conscious of your body, allowing the legs to be relaxed. Allow the muscles of the abdomen to relax. Allow the solar plexus to relax. Now feel your shoulders. Allow them to come backward and downward as they relax. The neck is straight and relaxed. Become aware of your face muscles, allowing the jaw to be relaxed. Allowing the cheeks to relax. Now feel your eyes. Allow them to relax. And feel your forehead. And allow your forehead to relax. Now, consciously communicate with the Divine in your own way, spontaneously and sincerely. Now, focus on the feeling of light in your forehead. Allow the light to expand, relaxing all of the skull and the brain. And allow the light to flow into your face, relaxing the face more deeply. It flows into your neck and shoulders, relaxing that area. It flows into your arms, relaxing your arms. And the light focuses in your chest area as if the sun is shining there, filling your chest with the sensation of light and energy. And this sensation of light moves into your solar plexus, relaxing that area. And then into your abdomen. And into the buttocks, the thighs, arriving at the soles of the feet. If any parts of the body are still tense or dark, allow them to relax and to receive the vibration of light. Feel your being opening to the divine, receiving light and energy. Continuing with the sense of light, focus on your chosen object of concentration, returning to it with love and patience over and over. gradually relax your body and your mind and complete the meditation. Okay, do you have any questions or something you'd like to share with us concerning the meditation or today's lesson on the tendencies, the 4 states of the tendencies, and the 3 laws of evolution: karma, dharma, and love? Anything like you to ask or say? Alpida?
Alternating is conflicting always or not?
Yeah, well, it should be opposite, you know. Yeah. We may not experience it as a conflict, but it should be opposite qualities. Anything?
I'd like to discern the difference between karma and free will. I mean,
We will discuss that next week.
it's-
We will devote the whole class to that.
and what you said about choosing when to die, but your father, if he chose a particular death,
Yeah, I would say that he chose it as a soul, not as a personality.
yes, it's a soul, or a baby that chooses to die a few days after it's born.
Mm.
That's a choice too.
Yeah,
That the soul makes.
I believe so.
And where is the evolution in that?
Usually in such situations the soul doesn't need to take many lessons. It's just a matter of touching the earth level and leaving for some reason. Most of the lessons in this case are for the parents. It creates the possibility of evolution for those around by experiencing the death of their child.
On the paper here, Bob, you say review your various traits and behaviours throughout the years until this moment. Does that mean that we mention our development, how we have come to the state that we are now, or
Just mention the traits, and put them in some category. And I used to have quite a tendency towards anger, or
and how that
I used to have
changed?
quite a tendency towards money. No, it's not so important to me. I had tendency to be very particular about my appearance, or the appearance of my home, or social things. You just see the things that you've gone through in your life, interests, emotions.
So it's not only now then.
Yeah. Because some things that may not be functioning now may simply be in a weak state, and they could come up again. I mean, all of us have moments in which we thought we had overcome something, and then with a particular stimulus, or if our energy gets low, suddenly we find ourselves feeling emotions that we thought we had overcome. Yes?
I understand the appeal of the law of karma, but how can we know that it's there? I mean, is there any, can you give us any way other than it would be unjust if it weren't there?
Yeah.
Just
One way to see its justice would be to be able to remember previous lives and to remember the specific actions which have created the need for this now. In some cases, we do regressions to past lives, but we don't usually do it just for curiosity. We would do it for someone, for example, who has worked for a considerable amount of time trying to overcome some fear or some tendency, which we can't seem to be able to explain why this person should fear this or have this blockage in this life. And since we can't find the roots of it, then in some of these cases we may do a regression to past lives so that the person can see. Of course, you could also say that this could be fantasy or imagination. But there seems to be some integrity in the memories. They seem to be coherent lives, details about how they lived. So another possible proof would be remembering the specific events which created that karma. The other thing which convinces is that all religions have this concept. Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. No religion is without this concept. So we see that this truth seems to be sprouting up everywhere. It seems logical. It's pretty much universally agreed upon. The idea of, I'm not talking about reincarnation, I'm talking about karma here. Universally agreed upon. It's another factor which helps you to accept it.
But why is it important, or why do we not remember?
I think it's one factor is the fact that the power of the mind is not such. If I asked you to tell me what you did 20 years ago, you can't remember. And you certainly can't remember things that you did when you were 2 and 3 and 1 in a few months. So how can you remember something beyond that? Since your memory is not powerful enough to remember even this lifetime.
But you can have some memory or some certainty.
Do you remember anything specifically from 1 year of age? It's in there. The memory is there, but you don't have access to it. So with regressions, you can have access to it, to the childhood years and to the previous life. So one reason is simply the power of the mind itself. Another reason is that, can you imagine knowing how many times you have killed, how many times you have stolen, how many times you have been killed, you have harmed? Can you imagine experiencing the attachment that you have experienced to how many thousands of souls who were your sisters, your brothers, your parents, your spouse, as you see them walk around today? You couldn't handle it. For example, in some Druze villages in Lebanon where they do believe in reincarnation, and the children are not told to shut up when they start talking about things that we remember from the past. I know people personally who know people 20 and 40 years older than they are who were their children in the previous life, and they told them all the details. I mean, you have a 5-year-old child telling this 30-year-old person or 40-year-old man or woman what they did, where they hid things, where some jewelry that they left was in the house, and then some of these people can't disengage with themselves. They're attached to these people as being their children, and they're 35 years older than they are. And so, can you focus on this life if you experience all of the people that you were attached to? So a second reason is that we don't have the detachment necessary from the specific events. That all the mistakes we have made, all the times we have suffered, and all of the attachments we have had, if all that was existing in our mind now, we'd go crazy.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, isn't it also terrible not knowing, and knowing that your body is decaying, and that you are going to suffer and you are going to die? I mean, at the same time, that realization is as horrible.
Why is it so horrible? If you accept it, it's not
not
horrible.
knowing or not being certain, let's say not remembering.
Not remembering what? What you did to deserve a certain karma, or not remembering that you have lived? Which of the two you're talking about?
That you have lived,
Ah.
that there is
That
this
there is
law of
life,
karma, that,
yes.
that there is this.
Well, this
Not
is,
knowing that as well,
Yeah.
it is as terrible in a way, isn't it though? I mean, not,
it's a matter of faith. If you can have faith without, this is the meaning of faith. Faith is believing in something you can't prove. Okay, you wouldn't go home and say today, "I believe I was at class." I know I was at class. So, things that we can't see yet, things we can't prove yet. This is why we have the word faith. I have faith in certain things because some higher beings have taught them. There are teachings because they seem logical, because I can infer them. But not having experienced them, it's difficult to have 100% faith. See? So faith is a factor here, having faith that it's true. And even if it's not, if you don't exist after death, you don't lose anything. Because there's no one to experience anything anyway. So it's not really important, actually. Anything else that you would like to say or ask?
This decision you make before, I don't know if you're going to talk about this, it's conscious decision.
Conscious decision, not conscious to our personality, but conscious to our soul.
How is that achieved?
Okay, I think there are a few ways this is achieved. First of all, a child going to grade school doesn't have much choices, does he? He has to take some basic lessons. He has to learn the language, he has to learn mathematics. And as the child goes through school, he begins to be given more and more choices. Then he can choose, I want to go into science, I want to go into arts, I want to go into something else, you see. So I think in the beginning, the soul really doesn't have many choices. His karma dictates. He has some very specific lessons he may need to learn. Eventually, it seems that the soul has more choices, and that there seem to be guides. Just as there are guides when you leave the body, you meet guides who help you to acclimate yourself to this new mental environment. There seem to be guides which also guide you in choosing of the incarnation. Now, this is an interesting outcome. When we will be discussing all of this when we discuss immortality, because there are some sources about this. One source is a woman named Helen Wambach who did hypnosis on over 1,000 people and asked them questions about the moments before birth. It's called Life Before Life. And it's a very interesting book if you want to buy it. It's Life Before Life by Helen Wambach. She's a psychologist. And people talk about, she asked them questions about, are you choosing to be born? Have you chosen your gender? Have you chosen your parents? Why are you choosing this incarnation? For what reason? It's very interesting answers, and we will be reading some of them when we move on to that subject. Wambach. Anything else? Okay, have a nice week, and we'll see you next week. We're free will and karma next week.